our inspirational interludes are to really motivate you, to captivate, and to say, I really want to work on my next career goals and take that next step. So what exactly is an inspirational interlude? Defined by our next speaker, an inspirational interlude is the space in between being convinced that we can get things done and that we will get things going. So it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, President and Principal of DNI, MD, a great friend and longtime HACR supporter, Monica Diaz.
Hello there. How are you? How are you? Okay, that means that you're already hungry and I'm not even started. Okay? Well, I promise you, after I finish talking, you can go to lunch. Is that a deal? Okay, great. So are you going to be with me while we're engaged in this conversation? Yes? Okay, I just bribed you. With food. Un latino con comida, imagínate. Thank you for being here and devoting time to develop yourself. It is extremely important to utilize this time in the best way possible. Don't get distracted with anything else other than you. Because as Sid Wilson was saying yesterday, this time is for you. Don't get confused. It's not about the emails or the texts or the posting. Well, you'll post later, please, okay? Because the hashtags, HACR, LPP, do all that. But focus on you. And this is the time in which we're going to talk about an interlude. And I already gave it away, because Alberto was asking me last night, what is this thing about the interludes? And I was like, I don't know. You came up with the name. I'm just speaking about it. But then I had to think, what is an interlude in your life, in your career, at this conference? What is an interlude? Well, when you think about it, you go to the root of the word, it's really a space in between. It's a space in a time in between. For the purposes of this conversation, I want you to think about that space in between your confidence and your doubts. The present moment and your next moment is that space in time where you transition from one feeling, one thought, to the next. You see, at this conference, we are here surrounded by La Latinidad. We feel absolutely inspired. We are engaged by this community, like us, who gives us ideas, who test our ideas, who empower us to remember that we can accomplish anything that we put our minds into. We feel empowered. We feel invincible. We feel unstoppable. Because indeed we are. But then you take a minute and you're by yourself. And then that mental gas starts running out. I felt invincible 5 minutes ago. But now I'm by myself. I'm not quite sure. Or you just run into somebody who starts chipping away a little bit of that confidence and that conviction that you had in yourself. And that's where self-doubt comes in. That's the interlude. And if you allow those interludes to extend, they can become longer. They can last more than a moment. They can last months or even years if you let them. I want to tell you the story of an interlude that I had a few years back. This was almost at the end of 2019. I knew that I had been successful. I was doing some career advancement and progression for over 20 years in an area that I love, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. But at that precise moment, I found myself in a longer interlude of not knowing what I wanted to do next. I knew where I was coming from. I knew about myself that I still love working with people, engaging others, learning from leaders and people around the world about how to address human differences and make ourselves understandable and respected by others. I knew that about myself. I still love that. What I was not sure was what I wanted to do with that moving forward. And the more I tried to figure it out, the more I became stuck. The more I was rushing to say, I must know what to do with my life right now in my career, the more immersed I got into not necessarily knowing where I was going. It was frustrating. It was infuriating at some time. So, if or when you find yourself in this longer interlude between confidence and doubt, I would recommend you do something. Don't rush it. Take a breather. Take a break. Make sure that you take all the pieces that you have learned about yourself, about your career, about what you like or dislike. Put it all together. Look it in front of you. And try to figure out if you find a different meaning to it. Look at the pieces of your life, of your career, of your endeavor, and organize them in a different way. And let your learnings become your creation. You see, in this longer interlude that I had, I didn't really plan what I was going to do. But it was during this longer interlude that I found myself writing my first book, my business memoir, From Intent to Impact, The 5 Dualities of Diversity and Inclusion. And you see, when I started writing this book, I thought I had enough for an article. Well, I had a little bit more, like 287 pages longer than an article. And what I learned while doing it is I started just by taking the notes that I've been gathering for 8 years. I had 8 years of notes. I'm a note taker, yes. I had 8 years of notes, of aha moments that I had gathered when working with people around the world, of things that I said, this is interesting. This just happened in a conversation, in a meeting. And I started looking at those notes in a different light. At first, they were only gotitas del saber, words of wisdom, who knows? I didn't plan to do anything with it, just my note-taking because I'm a note-taker. But I started looking at those notes in a different light. And at first, they just felt like exactly that, notes. They were interesting to read, but when I took a breather and started looking at them in a different way, then they started organizing them like if it were pieces of a puzzle. I started moving those learnings around and tried to identify and figure out what they meant until they revealed themselves to me. I didn't necessarily know what it meant. But when I put them all together, I realized that I have been an acting leader. Somebody who was doing, and now was really much immersed in my thoughts and reflecting of what I had learned. And I realized that I needed to take a moment to transition. That interlude was supposed to give me the space and the time between confidence and doubt to move from being an acting leader to being a thought leader. Somebody who can now stand here in front of you and share those learnings that you can take on to empower many more moving forward, to influence and impact the environments that we work in. That was my interlude. That was my transition. So if and when you find yourself in that long interlude that can last a moment, can last a day, can last a month, make sure that you take it easy, that you gave yourself some grace, that you remember that that is the time to let your thoughts of what you have learned, put them aside, let them sit for a minute, then look at who you are, who you become, what you have learned, and organize those thoughts in a different way. Make sure that you give yourself some space for creation. And make sure that then you look at what you want to do next with the conviction that you're just moving from your present moment. You're moving from your present acting to creating your next level of confidence and impact. It is in these moments when we talk about the doubt and the confidence that we recognize that we are not alone, that we have these moments, these interludes in our lives, and we want to acknowledge them. There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with the doubt. There's nothing wrong with trying to figure out what you want to do next. Dwell on it. Sleep on it. Wake up on it. Give yourself some grace, knowing that you are indeed unstoppable and absolutely invincible. And that we're counting on you to lead this country, to lead your companies, to lead this world into a better place where we all have the opportunity to be Latinos, to be inclusive leaders who create a work environment that is much better for others than the one that we join. So we'll talk more about the interludes, but I applaud you for being here, for taking time to develop yourselves. And I encourage you to keep moving forward, because you will and you are having that level of impact that you aspire to see in the world that you lead. Thank you so much. And with 4 minutes to spare, I now give you lunch, which is happening on the rooms next door. It's Met 2, 3, and 4. So happy lunch. Hasta luego.